When we were planning this trip, I was kind of worried because we already had Pizzeria Badia, and I was like, oh, well, how's it going to measure up? But I'm actually kind of excited right now.
Hi, I'm Jim. Welcome to Pizza Legends, where I'm attempting to go to the 50 best pizza places in the US. And I think I can get to 48 out of 50 of these pizza places without driving a car. So I'm going for it. I'm not exactly sure yet, but I think this may be one of just a few Amtrak rides. Designed by A.M. Griffin in the Spanish Mission style, Orlando's Amtrak station was built in 1926 when the Atlantic Coast Railroad bought out the South Florida Railroad. This new Orlando station was built as a replacement for the older Church Street station about a mile north of here. The station building at Orlando is not very large, but 100 years ago, there were only about 20,000 people in Orlando and only about 35,000 in the whole county. And just out in front of the station, you can also pick up Lynx Bus 40, which will take you north into downtown Orlando and Lynx Central, where you can connect to most of the local buses in the network. If you take the 40 bus southbound, it will take you to Universal Studios. Bus fare is $2 or $5 for a day pass. If you're disembarking in Orlando, you can transfer to Sunrail here. The day of the week also makes a difference because, at least for now, it only runs Monday through Friday. Which is a bummer because Sunrail Sand Lake Road Station, which is the next station south of here, actually has pretty good bus connections to the airport. I took this trip to Tampa last week, and it was probably in the low 60s during the day, which is not unusual for Central Florida in January. But here I am a week later, January 20th, and this is my 7th winter in Orlando, and I think this is the coldest day that I've ever experienced here. It's just after noon. I'm good. It's just after noon. And it is 45 degrees, and the wind chill is just under 40 degrees. It's rare, but I guess it does happen. So if you're coming here in January, be prepared.
We are here aboard the relatively new Amtrak Floridian en route from Chicago to Miami via Washington, D.C. Of course, we boarded in Orlando and we're only going to Tampa. The ride takes just under 2 hours. We booked these tickets relatively last minute and it was $18 per person round trip. So actually a really good deal, and honestly, it really beats driving. The drive between Orlando and Tampa is terrible. There's almost always traffic. It's really just a dangerous stretch of road, and I don't recommend driving it if you don't have to. The train's a good option. Again, only one round trip per day, but the timing is pretty good, and if it works out for you, I would go for it. Train leaves Orlando at around 10:20 a.m. and the return trip back to Orlando leaves Tampa around 4:50 p.m. If not, Flixbus runs like 18 round trips per day between Orlando and Tampa. Plenty of options there for getting between the two cities.
One of my favorite parts of taking the train versus flying is the legroom for days. 2 120-volt electrical outlets, and no one ever tells you to put away your laptop or that you have to remain seated and can't use the bathroom. The scenery along the route goes from suburban to rural, agricultural, and light industrial. One of the nicknames for Orlando is Pulp Town, a reference to all of the citrus pulp that used to be processed here. You'll see a lot of older warehouses and factories in towns throughout the region that were related to the citrus industry, but unfortunately, citrus is dead in Florida. Citrus trees don't lose their leaves in the winter. All of the trees in this massive grove are gray because they're dead. Citrus blight affects trees all over the world and showed up in Florida about 100 years ago, but with the right root stock, it doesn't typically cause a tree to decline until it's about 15 or 20 years old, and most commercial trees will start bearing fruit after 3 years. Citrus greening, on the other hand, was introduced in 2005 and is spread by a flying insect. Citrus greening ruins the fruit as it ripens, so it can't be sold for anything. Because Tampa is a true terminal station, as you approach the station, the train pulls off onto a siding in the shape of an upside-down Y, and then reverses so it can pull into Tampa Terminal backwards, so that it's facing the right way when it leaves for Miami. Sad but true, Tampa's Union Station was almost torn down in the 80s to make way for expressway ramps, but was eventually designated a city landmark. The city bought the building, and a nonprofit group rallied to restore it and still maintains it. It's similar in size to the station in Orlando, but unlike Orlando, is right on the edge of downtown. Leaving Union Station on foot is kind of a mess, but once you get under the Summit Expressway, it's actually pleasant, and Fabrica is about a 10-minute walk from Union Station, easy enough on a beautiful day like this one. The Channel District is an old industrial and warehouse district just east of downtown Tampa and has seen a ton of redevelopment over the last decade. We're here in the Channel District of Tampa on our way to Fabrica Pizza, ranked number 18 in the US. Let's do it. Let's get some pizza.
When we were planning this trip, I was kind of worried because we already had Pizzeria Video, and I was like, oh, well, how's it going to measure up? But I'm actually kind of excited right now.
Like a lot of restaurants these days, you order at the counter and bring a number to your table. You also help yourself to dishes and silverware. We ordered the spinach salad and burrata to start, and washed that down with a fungi and margarita pizza. Pies are small, as you'd expect for this style. Still, a salad, a starter, and 2 pies was a bit too much for the 3 of us. We left with full bellies and half of a pie. Caramelized onions are a nice touch because it makes it sweet and savory at the same time. Really enjoying it.
So, hot take, I'm going in for another slice. I think it's what you would expect from a Neapolitan. Right? The crust seems like slightly underdone, but the sauce is delicious. A little on the sweet side, but also a little tart. Yeah, it's a good pizza. I think if you're in the neighborhood, it's definitely worth it. Would I go from Orlando to Tampa just for this? No. But if I was here, I would definitely come back. The cheese was drippy?
Yeah.
No. It was drippy for you, but then we let it cool off and then it was fine. Yeah, no, I thought that the crust, especially on the margarita, was a little underdone. On the fungi, it was actually pretty good. It's like, I think that was closer to the perfect crust. But the sauce, I thought was really good. There was like one of the slices, I got a mouthful of sauce closer. You're really in my face. Yeah, one of the slices, I took a bite closer to the crust and it was like mostly sauce. There wasn't really any cheese in it. And that it was cool because it started off sweet and then it got you could taste the acidity in it, but then it mellowed out into an umami vibe, which I enjoyed. It's pretty tasty sauce.
Cheese, drippy.
18 out of 50 in the US. It's ranked number 18. I don't know, because I feel like I only have 3 and 25 to go on, and I'm gonna say that I think Bricco, even with all the char, I think Bricco is better. It's pretty good, but I think that They just need to leave it in the oven a little bit longer. Like when we came in, they seemed very concerned with letting us know how long it was going to take. I don't know if that's because people are like come in here in a rush or they're doing a lot of takeout. I don't know. So I definitely think Badia is the best one we've done so far. But I think Bricco's better. All right, we're going to go see more of Tampa. We're going to go catch the trolley. Let's go. Tampa's always been a bigger city than Orlando, but it's wild to see just how much downtown Tampa is booming compared to downtown Orlando. The cranes are just everywhere in Tampa. So we hopped on the trolley to head over to Ybor City. Ybor was originally its own town, but was annexed in the 1880s by Tampa. It's named for Vicente Martinez Ybor. Ybor was born in Valencia, Spain, but moved to Cuba at 14 to avoid conscription. He started what became a successful cigar business in Cuba, and eventually got a little too cozy with the Cuban rebels who were fighting for independence from Spain. The rebels lost, and Ybor fled to Key West, where he continued his cigar operations, eventually setting up shop in Tampa. Old tobacco warehouses and cigar factories are all over this part of Tampa. The cigar factories themselves were staffed up mostly with Cubans, Spaniards, and Sicilians. It's what sets Tampa particularly, and peninsular Florida in general, apart from the rest of the South. By 1900, 21% of the population of Tampa was foreign-born. 10% were born in Cuba, 4% in Italy, 3% in Spain. In 1910, 34% of the population was either foreign-born or had at least one foreign-born parent. That's in addition to all the people moving down from the Northeast and Midwest. This was highly unusual for a city in the Southeast at the time. For example, in 1910, Atlanta had a foreign-born population of about 2%. New Orleans was the only other outlier in the South, and back then was only around 10% foreign-born. All of those foreign-born workers went on to set up mutual aid societies. One of the biggest mutual aid societies was Centro Español, which is still in the heart of Ybor City. 2 blocks to the east, you had l'Unione Italiana, which is still there and today goes by the name the Italian Club of Tampa. And 8 blocks northwest is the Centro Astoriano. These groups also collaborated with each other. Burials are but one of the many services they covered, and you have cemeteries for both l'Unione Italiano and Centro Español, sharing the same plot of land about a mile north of their clubhouses. This is really cool. For a city that's really not that old, there's a lot of history here. We ducked into La France, a vintage shop on 7th Avenue. They had a lot of really nice stuff in there, but it was more than any of us wanted to spend. We saw so many of these new open courtyards that I can only assume that the city of Tampa is requiring them. I hope so. It makes walking around a lot more interesting. By the time we were starting to think about heading back to Union Station, we thought dessert might be a good idea, so we walked over to the flan factory, which was a really nice surprise. We started out with this fried queso with a guava sauce for dipping. Delicious. And the flan was so good I completely forgot to record. It's a full Cuban cafe with coffee, and while we didn't try the sandwiches, we saw other people eating them and they looked amazing. Back to the station, and look, for $9 I can't complain, but for the life of me I cannot figure out why Amtrak does 90% of what it does. The experience could be so much better than what it is with so little effort. I've been on Amtrak a lot in the Northeast Corridor and in California, and the experience is completely different. Like, here in Tampa, it's a high-level platform, and yet they still only open one door and have airline-style boarding. You have to wait for 200 people to file through one door before anyone can start getting on. This train arrived 20 minutes late to Tampa, and then we left 25 minutes late because of these insane boarding antics. Final thoughts on Fabrica and Tampa.
Cheese, shrimpies.
Crust.
Crust was good. I don't like it when it's like charred and crispy.
Okay. Sauce.
The sauce was really good. I liked it.
Yeah, I agree. The sauce was pretty good. It didn't hit me at first, but after like I had a couple of slices, I was like, oh wow, this is really good. Yeah. I also, it's kind of like self-service. Like you order at the counter. It's super casual, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Which is surprising. Like you don't normally get that quality in that kind of restaurant environment. La France.
Piratey, but expensive.
Yeah, it was expensive.
I loved the pirate jackets, but I'm a broke middle schooler with no money and no job. So,
Yeah, I have a job, and I would not pay $200 for one of those jackets. I mean, unless I was going to be in the Gasparilla Fest, then I would have to get dressed up. It's like a pirate parade,
I'll go to a pirate parade.
but it's in the river. You have to have a boat to be in it. So, anyway, all right, maybe those would be goals for like next March or February. I think it's in February.
Okay.
I did like they had some pretty awesome bowling shirts,
Yeah, pretty sick. They
but
had cute corsets.
those shirts were also $75. And it might be worth it. The corsets, those were ridiculous. How much were those?
Like $100.
Yeah,
But I
crazy.
don't know how much corsets usually cost, to be fair.
Yeah,
I think they're always expensive.
I've never worn one, so I don't know.
I think they're always expensive.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, I think the craziest part of this day has been the train ride.
For sure.
Amtrak always surprises, sometimes disappoints.
When has it been a good surprise?
Oh, I mean, like, funny things happen all the time.
Oh,
Like that whole situation with the wheelchair earlier.
yeah.
Yeah, that was wild. Funny, but like only funny because it didn't end tragically.
Yeah.
Like that guy was trying to push this old woman out of the train in a wheelchair, and like there's like a bump in between the two cars, and he kept pushing up against the bump, and was like gonna tip this old lady out of the wheelchair. But eventually, like one of the train crew helped him get over the bump. it was wild. All right, that was an exciting pizza adventure.
I agree.
Next up, where should we go?
Vegas.
Vegas. I think Vegas is going to happen later this year, but I think Miami might be next, or back to Philly.
Yeah, those would probably be first.
All right, legends. That's it from us. We'll see you next time.